Joining us now is San Jose State professor Melinda Jackson. Thank you so much for being with us. We're hearing a lot of reaction, a lot of shock that these verdicts came down the way that they did. What was your reaction?
Yes, well, I was also very surprised that we got a verdict so quickly. And I think the fact that it was guilty on all 34 counts and that it came out within 2 days really speaks to the strength of the case against Trump, that this jury, is really sending a strong message here that there was no doubt in their minds. And obviously, the political implications of this remain to be seen. But despite all of Trump's claims that this was unfair and he's being politically targeted, it is never helpful for someone to be campaigning as a convicted felon. There's really no upside to that. And I think it will make a difference in the minds of some potential voters who are now going to look at this race differently in light of this verdict.
Well, as a surprise to no one, the former president came out saying that this was rigged and a disgrace. This whole trial was rigged and a disgrace. I'm curious, that reaction and that sort of fury that he's most likely going to take with him through the rest of the campaign, do you think that is going to help him in this race?
I don't think so. And we've heard it before. He has been making those claims for the last 4 years, really. And so the fact that his message may be mostly focused on his own perceived unfair treatment and victimhood, that is a story that we've all heard before. And those who support him, I don't think it's going to convince them to support him anymore. What he needs to be doing, thinking ahead to the general election in November, is reaching out to the people who are on the fence, who are not his diehard supporters, and trying to win their votes. And I don't know that focusing, again, on his perceived mistreatment is going to be a very effective campaign strategy to reach out to those undecided voters at this point.
You mentioned you were surprised how quickly the jury came back with their verdict. I'm curious, with the evidence presented in court, why you think that it took as short or as long as it did.
Well, it was a complex case in terms of, the financial details and, just sorting through all of the various legal, aspects of it. You just never know with a jury trial. That is why it is the backbone of our legal system, because it really does bring in ordinary Americans to sit and listen to the evidence and to sift it all through and discuss. And particularly, again, with the number of counts and the high profile nature of this case, it would not have surprised me if the jury took a little bit longer to really, thoroughly re-examine everything. The fact that it was so quick and that they asked for clarification on a few things, but they had a unanimous decision within 2 days means that it sounds like there wasn't a lot of disagreement among the jury, and that the prosecution proved its case effectively.
Sentencing will be on July 11th, which is just a few days away from the Republican National Convention. I'm curious, what impact do you think that sentencing day will have on the convention?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. I mean, all of this is so unprecedented. It can't be good, right? We don't know what the sentencing will hold. We expect that there are going to be appeals as well. The next phases of this are likely to take months and not be resolved before the election in November. But again, it is not a good news story to be sentenced for a criminal conviction, at the same time that you are running for any public office, let alone, the president of the United States. So I do think that this will have a chilling effect on at least some people who may have been considering voting for Trump and will not be as likely to do that now.
All right, Professor Melinda Jackson, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Well, we will have continuing coverage of the Trump guilty verdict in the hush money trial. Sonoma State political science professor David McEwen joins us live for his insight. We'll be right back. We are continuing to follow this breaking news. Former President Donald Trump found guilty on all counts in the hush money trial in New York, making him the first former president to ever be convicted of felony crimes. Join me live now is Sonoma State political science professor David McEwen. Professor McEwen, thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
So give us some perspective on the magnitude of this moment. This is the first former president to be ever convicted of a crime. How huge is this in history?
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is a tectonic shift in our politics. It was 50 years ago this August 20th, that Richard Nixon resigned the presidency of the United States. And in some ways, we've come full circle from that. But this is dramatically different. This isn't 1968 or 1974. It's more like 1860, and the stakes are huge. What's going on in the country is more than divisive and more than polarized. It's shaking faith in institutions. So recognition of the rule of law is hugely important. And that's one thing, element that is reliable, because legal institutions are strong. So this has legal aspects. The political ramifications of this case of today, of what happens in the future with subsequent charges or subsequent developments, is hugely political. That reverberates past November 5th, and this has huge constitutional implications. So these three things, legal, political, and constitutional, are all that's at stake after today's verdict and what's going on. And Donald Trump is front and center in all of that. That's just the way he'd actually like to have it.
I want to just clarify, we keep calling this the hush money trial, but to be clear, he was found guilty of falsifying business records to cover up the payoff to a porn star. 34 counts. Were you surprised that he came back guilty on all 34 counts this quickly?
Yeah, it's both fast and the sense that they agreed on all of the elements, because some of them are related to, some of the charges are related to his revocable trust. Some are related to other entities. And so it is a complex set of business practices and a complex set that was laid out. And so everybody coming together to understand the mindset and doing so quickly, reading back the testimony, for example, of Pecker and then of Michael Cohen, signaled yesterday that things were headed in this direction. But also the calendar is hugely important here, because, we have June 27th coming up. We have the Republican convention just after sentencing occurs, as you mentioned. We have another debate. The election itself is only 158 days away. So that means Donald Trump is going to go negative in a way. He's going to have to do this, and he's going to have to attack while those legal things are going on. Right. And that means everyone's to kind of strap in and get ready.
Right. I mean, I'm curious if this is going to really change the campaign moving forward. I mean, how is Biden going to react to this? How should he react?
Yeah, I mean, you saw elements of this with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris talking to African-American voters who were so critical for what happened. I mean, 94% of African-American women voted for Joe Biden in 2020. They need a huge turnout of African-American voters overall, but they've also seen some changes and leakage with Latinx voters, Latinos and Latinas, not just in Florida, but across the country. And they are hugely important. And so the focus for the Biden administration really needs to be on winning 3 states. Those states are Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They can weather losses in Georgia or Arizona or Nevada as a result. But the elements of those 2 groups, for example, African Americans and Latinos and Latinas, are huge for the Biden coalition. They have to reassemble that while we have this upheaval for what's going on with young people. Donald Trump tapped out at about 46 or 47%. And we know that there's an element of the GOP habitual voter that will not vote for a convicted felon. So what do? They won't vote for Joe Biden. Do they vote for someone like RFK or a third party, or do they sit out? And that's an important element, because 93 million people who were eligible to vote in 2016 did not cast a ballot. And if you're Donald Trump, you want further people staying home, so you go negative early and often. And this is the start of that big momentum to do that with the voting public.
I just want to repeat once again, sentencing is on July 11th, just a few days away from the Republican National Convention. Professor David McEwen, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Hi, thanks so much for watching. To view more content like this, we've selected some videos that we think you'll enjoy. And don't forget to like or click that button here on the bottom left of your screen to subscribe.